didn't see him. What are you looking so sad about, Jeff?
I'm surprised. I mean, I'm really insulted. That's not right, what you just said.
What do you mean, what I just said?
I mean, I'm getting a drink of water. I'm late getting home, but you talking. I said something about the greatest heavyweight champ, man. I'm a hometown man, and you talking about Joe Louis, man. Joe Louis wouldn't be nothing for me. Joe, I tell you, Joe, do you think you would have stood a chance with me?
Well, one time during my career, I bombed a bomber one tour.
I would have been a bum compared to you.
What's happening, my people? It's Cat Sports again, back for another afternoon with the family. That's right. You know what time it is. If it's Monday through Friday, 2 p.m., it's the Box Story, bringing you all that boxing history. Boxing is the greatest sport of them all. That's why we love it. Can't get enough of it. Miss Cass, Al Booker, Mike Grimm. Salute to everyone and welcome to another episode of Cat Sports, the Box Story. Today, Philly Tough. Kensaw Love 1 in the building. Salute. And the Drunk Irishman. Salute. Yeah, we're going to be talking about some fighters from Philadelphia today. Not top shelf fighters like B-Hop or Joe Frazier. We're going to talk about some of the ones that's not exactly household names, you know, like Meldrick Taylor, Bad Betty Briscoe, Stanley the Kitten, Hayward. And at the end, I got it, since Santa Claus coming tonight and stuff, I got a list of the fights we want next year for him, okay? So toward like the last 15 to 20 minutes, I'm going to Hope he's listening. Give him our list of the fights we won in 2026, okay? What's up, Ja, in the building? Yeah, Philly tough today. Philly just got a thing for having those tough, gritty fighters that love to rumble. In the Joe Frazier mode. Seemed like they all just took after him. A lot of them fought out of his gym. He had a famous gym up there in Philly, you know, like the white Muhammad Quali. Now, some of these fighters are from like Southern New Jersey. All of that is considered Philly boxers, right? But how's everybody? Happy Christmas Eve, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, Merry Happy Merry, all that. Hope everybody having a good day. We will have a Past Sports Christmas special tomorrow. We're going to be called the 12 rounds of boxing. We're going to go through 12 of the greatest rounds, the best first round, the best second round, best third round, and on up. And then we're going to have some fights from boxing history that actually took place on Christmas Day. And a little boxing history around Christmas. Okay? That's tomorrow. All that and more on Cast Sports The Box Story, bringing you all that boxing history. But yeah, yesterday, I had some little trouble with the Wi-Fi. You would say Wi-Fi. If we go out, we'll be right back. So just hang with me today. Might have a little bit of troubles, but I said I can't miss 2 days in a row. I'm like a bank. I can't be closed 2 days straight, right? But okay, so now we got to start with our fight of the day. This wouldn't be right. So without further ado, let's have our fight of the day for today. I mean, the show's called Philly Tough. So who else to have in the fight of the day but Smoking Joe Frazier, right? Joe Frazier versus Jerry Quarry, June 23rd, 1969. This was 1969's fight of the year. Joe Frazier versus Jerry Quarry. Fight of the year for that year. All right, Philly Tough, who else could you have? And gotta have Joe Frazier in the fight of the day. Okay. So it was again June 23rd, 1969, and this was the fight of the year for 69. Joe Frazier slugfest with Jerry Quarry. Let's get into it. Joe Frazier's greatest night in the ring? By far, the distinction goes to the Philly Legends' epic win over arch rival Muhammad Ali in March 1971, fight of the century, okay? And Joe had plenty of other special nights, including his knockout wins over Jimmy Ellis, Buster Mathis, and Bob Foster, and also his stoppage win over tough George Chuvalo. You know, it takes some doing to stop George Chuvalo, the best shit in boxing history. Never off his feet, all his stoppages were by TKO. But Joe Frazier stopped him to one of his best nights in the ring. But, when it comes to the most thrilling of slugfest Smoking Joe ever engaged in, it could well be that his June 1969 win over the agonizingly tough and proud Jerry Quarry deserves the unofficial award. This fight that won the Ring Magazine Fight of the Year trophy that year is stunningly brutal and crammed full of action. Frazier, approaching his prime, his tools having been sharpened by the great Yank Durham, was 25 years old, and he was perfect at 23-0, okay? Joe was also the New York State Athletic Commission heavyweight champion, with him still some months away from being recognized by all as the man at heavyweight. Now, Corey was a year younger, 24. He was an already hardened, battle-tested fighter at 31 wins, 2 losses, and Jerry had 4 draws at that time, okay? 4 draws. That was Jerry there, Smoking Joe right there. Smoking Joe Frazier. Mm-hmm. Yeah, Jerry had 4 draws, okay? Now, the two rumbled inside a packed Madison Square Garden. And what a rumble it was. You can watch this savage encounter on YouTube if you haven't yet seen it, okay? But I'm going to give you to have an effort at doing this fight justice today. They're talking about it, okay? You can watch it on YouTube, but let's talk about it. Now, Quarry, who had good, often underrated counterpunching skills, didn't look to see how he could fire back after making Frazier miss with a shot. Not off the bat anyway. No. Instead, in a surprising move to even unsettle Joe a touch, Corey marched right to Frazier and began to trade blows with him, right? Yeah, Jerry was a great counterpuncher, but he didn't start out counterpunching. He went right up in the pocket and started slugging it out with Smoking Joe, right? In hindsight, these were borderline suicidal tactics. But Jerry had an enormous heart, and he felt he'd be able to take Joe's heart in a heated battle. And Jerry had some success early, but he just didn't have enough of it, okay? He had some success early, but just not enough, okay? Now, Jerry had fast hands, and they appeared to many to win the opening 2 rounds. But as we all know today, Smoking Joe was always something of a slow starter. I don't think Joe Frazier ever won a first round, okay? Smoking Joe was always something of a slow starter. And by rounds 3 and 4, it was a case of Smoking Joe smoking, okay? By round 3 and 4, Smoking Joe had started smoking. Now, Quarry slowed down, okay? And Smoking Joe made it his fight. Frazier, tank-like and seeming to enjoy the fight. Yeah, Smoking Joe was a tank-like fighter, and he loved to fight up inside. He was indeed loving the zest of combat, okay? A young George Foreman boxed his pro debut on this undercard, as a matter of fact. And he would remark often in later years how Joe would make a face during the Corey fight, as though he really was enjoying getting hit. The Foreman then knew Joe had no discernible weaknesses as a fighter. Yeah, George Foreman was on that undercard that night, making his pro debut, as a matter of fact. Yeah. 1969. Now, Frazier would not let Corey breathe, and now Jerry was simply trying to keep Joe off him. Yeah, he wasn't up there in the pocket slugging no more. He was trying to keep Smoking Joe off of him now, because remember, 3rd, 4th round, Joe had started smoking. Now, Frazier was getting stronger as the fight went on, with the opposite being witnessed from Corey. Corey was getting weaker. Then, in round 7, Corey was bleeding badly from a cut to his right eye, with the eye also swelling up, impeding his vision. Now, the swelling had actually started to bother Jerry in the 4th round, and the writing was on the wall, even if Jerry couldn't see it too clearly, right? Yeah, Jerry was still trying to come on strong, but the writing was on the wall. Everybody could see it except Jerry. Frazier was ready to come out to administer some more hurt in round 8, but the ringside doctor, upon examining Corey's badly injured eye, stopped the fight. Jury, ever the warrior, was fuming. He wanted to go on. Now, looking back all these years later, this fight really is one that, though it does enjoy continued fan attention from perhaps older boxing fans, it deserves to be far more celebrated than it is. The opening round gives the classic Hagler Hearns round 1 a run for his money. Yeah, that first round of this one. Because Jury came out and went toe-to-toe and wasn't doing bad. A lot of people said he won it, but again, Joe Frazier never won a first round, okay? At the time of the stoppage, Frazier was ahead on all cards. 6 rounds to 1, 5 rounds to 1 with 1 draw, and the third judge had the 6 rounds to 1. Stopped it in 7. And the ringside doctor said, I stopped it because the fight was turning into a slaughter. Right? That's what the ringside doctor said after the fight. At least he was honest, you know. Now, Frazier and Corey would fight again in June of 1974, 5 years later, back at the same location, the Garden. This time, Frazier was a former heavyweight champion, had lost it to Foreman, and he scored a stoppage in the 5th round. And guess who the referee was? Joe Frazier's idol, the legendary Joe Louis. He was everybody's idol around that time. But he was the referee for the second Frazier-Corey fight. Joe Louis. Yep. And then Smoking Joe getting interviewed after the fight by Howard Cosell himself. Yeah, that's today's fighters a day. Joe Frazier and Jerry Corey. What's up, Technique? Yeah, Merry Christmas to you, my friend. Oh, Technique, you from Philly? All right. Yeah, we got some Philly fighters. We don't have the big names, Technique, like B-Hop or Smoking Joe. But we got some, they're not household names, but I know Technique heard of them because he's from Philly. And we got 6 up. We got Meldrick Taylor. Matthew Saad Muhammad, Tommy Loughran, Bad Benny Briscoe, Willie the Worm Monroe, Stanley the Kitten Hayward, and Jersey Joe Walcott. Yeah, Jersey Joe was actually born in Philly. But, you know, Southern New Jersey fighters consider themselves part of the Philly tough fighters too. Right, Technique. Southern New Jersey, Atlantic City areas, Camden, around in there, they consider themselves Philly tough fighters too. Okay. All right, so let's start with, we got a little, let's talk about these tough guys first. But Merry Christmas to everybody. And Happy Christmas Eve, first of all, though. Right? It is Smoking Joe being interviewed by Howard Cosell. Right? Yeah, Howard was something else back in them days. Yeah. Okay, so tomorrow we got a Christmas special. The 12 rounds of boxing tomorrow. Okay? 12 rounds of boxing. Now, Rocky was a decent movie, and Creed was pretty good too. But they got it all wrong when it comes to Philly and boxing. Both of these films portrayed Philly as a city of lovable losers who can almost never get to the top. A locality where success in sports is rare and defeat is commonplace. Okay, that's how the movies portrayed it. Now, with all due respect, admittedly, this is kind of an accurate representation of the city's sports teams. In 135 years, the Phillies from Major League Baseball have won a grand total of 2 World Series. The NHL's Flyers haven't won a Stanley Cup since the 70s. the NBA Sixers, their last NBA title was in the early 80s. And the city's beloved Eagles of the NFL fame, it wasn't their first ever Super Bowl in 2018. It only took them 52 seasons. Okay, but when it comes to the sport of boxing, Philadelphia is loaded with winners. So they definitely have their share of hard luck warriors. In fact, we can call Philly a legit title town, blessed as it has been with both superlative pugilists and champions through the entire history of the game of boxing, right? And an argument could be made that boxing is a sport more people relate to than any of the others in Philly. It's been said that in Philly, even a homeless guy knows how to hook off the jab, right? So today we are going to highlight some Philly fighters, some Philly tough fighters. Now, this is not a ranking of the all-time greatest boxers from the city of brotherly love. As many of their greats, such as Lou Tendler and Benny Briscoe, never won a world title, okay? Yeah, Benny Briscoe is on this list. Yeah, but Lou Tendler was another great. They're two of the fighters, that greatest fighters to never win a world title, okay? Now, this list is a roll call of rough, gritty warriors who were through and through really tough. All of them fought quality opposition, had respectable careers, plus such intangibles as heart and the willingness to really rumble. And these fighters also have some interesting stories surrounding their careers and some hardships in their personal lives. And no city values and embraces an underdog overcoming challenges quite like Philadelphia does. No city embraces the underdog like Philly. Now, while all these fighters are from the Philadelphia area, it's important to note that the true Philly domain extends beyond the city's official borders. Southern New Jersey and the counties bordering the metropolis are in fact part of the sports culture of the city of brotherly love. For example, Atlantic City has always been part of home turf for Philly boxing, and athletes from Camden and other nearby regions have rightfully claimed to have Philly roots, and they stick to that extended geography. So now let's discuss some Philly tough fighters, okay? Some Philly tough fighters. Right now, we're gonna get to them. First is going to be Meldrick Taylor. He was 2 seconds away from legendary status. You know, first one to take that 08 Julio Cesar Chavez was 87-0. And yeah, Al Booger, you're right. You gotta protect yourself at all times. Like Al Booger has made clear to me. When I was saying that Larry, the referee, got his name, was wrong. Al Booger said, no, you gotta protect yourself at all times. 2 seconds left or 2 minutes left. And he's 100% right. And you know, when Meldrick, Richard Steele, when he was asking Meldrick, was he okay? For some reason, his trainer, Lou Duva, had jumped up on the apron. He was either talking to Meldrick or Richard Steele, and Meldrick was trying to respond to Lou Duva. That's why he didn't answer Richard Steele. And then Richard Steele asking the fighter, is he okay? And the fighter don't respond. I guess, you know, that means he's not okay. So you can't really fault Richard Steele for stopping it, because Meldrick did not respond to him. I don't know why Lou Duva was up on the ring apron at that point, but yeah, he distracted Meldrick, right? And Meldrick didn't respond, so yeah. Richard Steele stopped it. So it was really, that's one of the fights that will be debated forever. Like Hagler and Sugar Ray. Boxing fans from the next century will debate those fights. But let's talk about Meldrick. Now, there's Meldrick. I don't know if that's Julio Cesar Chavez he's fighting right there or not. Let me move this closer. There we go. Yeah, Meldrick, we're going to start it off with Meldrick. I had him up and I erased it. There we go. Now, how great was Meldrick anyway? I'm going to interrupt. Okay. Man, I went down Walmart this morning. It was so crowded. I went in one door and turned around and came right back out the other one, man. I would probably still be in there. The lines was literally from the counter almost to the back of the store, man. I went in one door and did a U-turn, came right back out the other. I was like, no, I got to be on at 2 o'clock. And this was like 11. I'd been still in there. But Meldrick Taylor. How great was Meldrick Taylor? Now, whether you feel Meldrick Taylor was great or even an all-time great, there's no denying he was special, very special. A man who had hands so fast they could start a fire in his gloves, who had a heavyweight's heart when he was, in reality, a natural 140 pounds. He was too brave, too warrior-like for his own good. That's what it cost him. Too brave and too warrior-like for his own good. I believe it is Julio Cesar Chavez. He's fighting right there, I think. Did Taylor have the fastest hands in all of boxing? Maybe he did. How about the biggest heart in boxing in terms of recent decade? Again, maybe he did. Yeah, Meldrick TNT Taylor was very special. That's what they call him, Meldrick Taylor. Mm-hmm. Now, Meldrick always, when he was still fighting, he refused to accept the fact that he was not and never would be the same man again due to what happened to him on the night of March 17th, 1990. Right? That was the Chavez fight. Never would accept he was never the same after that. It was filial heart, pride, and warrior-like tendencies against Mexican heritage. A refusal to lose, to let down the poor folks who your sheer majesty gave so much hope to in the first place. Now, Meldrick Taylor, some people say, could have made that fight much easier with Chavez. He should have boxed more, land stinging punches, and get out. Frustrate, similar to what Sweet Pea did, okay? Similar, and Meldrick could have fought that kind of fight because he had similar tools like Sweet Pea. Offensively, you know, he could have fought that kind of fight, but he chose not to, okay? But because Meldrick Taylor wasn't like that, he wanted to go to war, to beat his opponents, not just outbox them, okay? Meldrick didn't just want to outbox him, especially Julio Cesar Chavez. He wanted to beat him. And he had him beat, but he didn't want to beat him that way. Meldrick was a warrior, and Julio Cesar Chavez was too. And this collision of skills and differing styles ended up being settled one way by who was the harder man. And it ended up being Chavez with just 2 seconds remaining in what had been a super fight display of everything from Taylor: speed, balance, courage, blazing speed of hand, desire, and an astonishing ability to take whatever came his way to head and body. And he elevated himself to superhuman status in that fight. A bleeding, battered, and confused Taylor who had been let down by the chief cheerleader in his corner. Lou Duva literally did not know where to look. Like I was saying, Richard Steele was talking to him, and Lou Duva was up on the ring apron running his mouth too, right? Now, this was the greatest fight of the decade, yet Meldrick had lost. And he had lost cruelly. Inside a sold-out Earl's Court Arena on Halloween night in 1992, Taylor entered the ring looking like a male porn star. His black leather shorts drawing lustful gazes from the passionate female fans in attendance. But Taylor, still only 28, was no longer able to perform. Okay, this was after the Chavez fight. Crisanto Espana ripped the WBA welterweight title from Taylor in 8 rounds. It was amazing Taylor was there in the first place. After being so badly hurt by Julio Cesar Chavez, Taylor for a while made us believe he wasn't damaged. After the Chavez fight, he had a good win over the underrated Aaron Davis, and he became a champion again in the 147-pound division, right? And that seemed to suit him well. But it was an illusion. Chavez had done deep, deep damage to Taylor. We saw the fight and read of its aftermath. A broken orbital bone, a ton of blood swallowed, bruised kidneys. Everything hurt but Taylor's pride and unquestionable desire to carry on fighting. Now, against Espana, on the undercard of the Lennox Lewis-Razor Ruddock fight, Taylor grew old. He had piled on some years that May when an ill-advised move up the challenge Terry Norris for his 154-pound belt resulted in the quickest loss in Taylor's career. Still, we thought Taylor would beat the guy from Venezuela who fights in Ireland. We were dead wrong. But after that loss, Taylor carried on, already showing major signs of decline. And for those who were willing to listen hard enough, slurred speech, right? Taylor did not manage to get his weight down and get a return goal at an also past his best, but still formidable Chavez. Once again, Taylor did manage to get his weight down, and he got a return shot at an also past his prime, but still formidable Chavez. And once again, Taylor's blend of speed, machismo, and stinging power made things hot for Chavez. And once again, Taylor suffered a heartbreaking stoppage loss. Earlier and more convincing this time, though. Yeah, it wasn't with 2 seconds left this time. And then after the second Chavez loss, that should have been the end for the man who once had true undisputed greatness within his grasp. Yet Taylor, or a version of Taylor, battled on for 10 additional fights, often against no names, for little money. Taylor won 6 and lost 4. And by the time he had his final fight in July of 2002, Taylor neither looked like, sounded like, nor could fight like the almost perfect fighting machine we all marveled at in the 1980s and early 1990s. Okay? It should never have ended like this for such a truly magnificent fighter, athlete, person. But it did. As such, the lesson of how playing is smart rather than laying it all on the line in an effort at showing how much you really want it can change a boxer's life in so many ways. Though far less attractive to us hopeless fight fans and lovers of the dramatic hero show, a boring and or safety first fighter has a far greater chance of being able to live his post-ring life the way he wants to. And see, Meldrick listened to the fans. You know, they would call, just like they do Devin Shakur, they was calling him boring, a runner, all that. And Meldrick listened to the fans, and look what happened to him. He had Julio Cesar Chavez beat. That would have took him to legendary status to take that oath. But he listened to the fans. He wanted to be exciting. He didn't want to be called the runner. But that's what the type of fighter he was. You got to be what you are. You can't be what you're not. And see, look what happened to him. I say, Devin, Shakur, fight like y'all fight. Forget the fans, man. They want to call you boring and a runner. Well, oh well. But you won't end up like Meldrick. That should be a lesson. And when the cheering has stopped, when the crowds have long since vanished, when only the hardcore boxing fans have a care, that's all that matters then. Because it's over. Anybody worrying about how tough you were then, you should have just went on and been you. But Meldrick Taylor, yeah, he listened to the fans. And look what happened to him. 2 seconds away from greatness. He still would have been all beat up and slurred speech because Chavez put a beating on him, in the later rounds of that fight. But, that's because Meldrick stopped being who he was and he wanted to stand there and slug it out, right? But if he would have fought, boxed with those fast hands and ring generalship, he would have won that fight going away. But but Meldrick Taylor. But Philly tough today. He was a tough guy though. Matthew Saad Muhammad is next. They say when you're talking about the toughest two fighters of the modern era, it comes down to Arturo Gatti or Matthew Saad Muhammad. One of those two. Because Saad Muhammad was a tough guy in that squared circle. There he is. Philly tough today. And then we got a Christmas list for Santa Claus of what we want for next year. We're going to get to that at the end. Okay? Some fights we want. There's one fight that he can give me that's all I need is that one. If I could get that next year, I won't worry until 2027. If he give me this one fight, I'll die happy. Well, not next year though. Okay. All right, Matthew Saad. Who was Matthew Saad Muhammad anyway? Who was Saad Muhammad? The Hall of Fame boxer, Matthew Saad Muhammad, was light heavyweight champion of the world from 1979 to late 1981. He had a 2-year reign. A great fighter, known as much for his giant heart as his punch. He was a kind, decent man. In spite of life, would have made most people scream in agony. Okay, Philly tough, what he was. He epitomizes Philly tough. This one here, Matthew Saad Muhammad. Matthew Saad Muhammad, who was born as Matthew Antonio Loach on June 16, 1954, was a professional boxer and trainer whose life was a series of tragedies, but who nonetheless never gave in to despair. The tragedy of his life and childhood is only matched or bettered by the suffering of Sonny Liston, yet it never changed the smile with which he greeted the world. Now, Matthew Saad Muhammad's mother died shortly after he was born, and he and his elder brother were sent to live with an aunt. Unfortunately, when he was 5 years old, his aunt decided she did not have the money to raise both him and his brother. So she told the older brother to get rid of Matthew, right? So his brother took Matthew to the Benjamin Franklin Parkway in Philadelphia and left him there while he ran away, okay? In 2014, shortly before he died, Matthew Saad Muhammad remembered that day. And that's something. His brother took him there and left him. But in 2014, Matthew Saad Muhammad remembered that day. My brother took me out in the city when I wouldn't know where I was or how to get back to my aunt's house and ran away and left me there. I tried to run after him. I ran as fast as I could. I was 5 years old and I was running for my life. So after his brother left him, Saad Muhammad was discovered wandering around. And since he could not tell the police where he lived, he was turned over to Catholic Social Services. Okay, now his brother, 5 years old, his brother took him and left him there and ran away, and he tried to run after his brother, but he couldn't keep up. So the police found him, right? And Matthew didn't have no idea where he was. And you know, a 5-year-old child don't really know no numbers or streets or anything, really. He just knew where it was at, but he didn't have no idea in the city where he was, so the police took him to social services, right? So the Catholic Social Services was run by nuns who gave him the name Matthew Franklin, okay? And they named him after St. Matthew and the Franklin Parkway, where he was found at, okay? So Matthew lived in various foster homes until a couple from Philadelphia adopted him. Matthew was happy with his new family. I guess so. Your brother I would never go back there. Be anybody, right? Other than where he was at. So Matthew was happy with his new family, but being abandoned and what he had endured bothered him his entire life. He yearned to know who he was, where he was from, and why he had been abandoned. I wouldn't want to see that brother no more because I would probably do something to him. So no. Probably end up in prison somewhere. So I wouldn't want to see him or that aunt again. But he wanted to know who he was, you know, who his family was and everything, and where he was from, and why they abandoned him. He was asked by a reporter about his upbringing, and Saad Muhammad said to the reporter, "They just didn't have enough money to take care of me, so they got rid of me." Right? That's basically what happened. So when he became famous, a famous athlete, Saad Muhammad offered a $10,000 reward for anyone who could tell him who he really was. Excuse me for a minute. Okay, here we go. Yeah, when he became a famous athlete, famous boxer, he offered a $10,000 reward to anyone who could tell him who he was, who he really was. Through tips, he was finally able to discover the truth. Sadly, he discovered that his aunt was only interested in the $10,000, not him. Nonetheless, Saad Muhammad said, yeah, when he put that $10,000 up, guess who comes forward? The aunt. Then Saad Muhammad said, I'm still in shock. I had almost given up hope. I'd always wondered where I'd come from. I just wanted to know. Now, even with the way his aunt acted when he found her, he said, now at last, I don't have to search anymore. So then he converted to Islam. At least he had the satisfaction of knowing who he was and where he came from. They didn't say nothing about that brother. I wouldn't have wanted to see him because I would have did something to him now that we both grown. But anyway, he converted to Islam. Okay? He converted to Islam. Mike Masick and Just Do Boxing in the building. What's up? Just Do Boxing. Oh, Mike Masick been in the building. What's up, Mike? Salute. Happy holidays to you. That's Mike Rim. Salute, Mike Rim. Happy holidays to you. And happy holidays to Just Do Boxing coming up at 4 p.m. Yeah, Matthew Saad Muhammad. Isn't that something? His aunt couldn't raise him and his brother, so she told his brother to get rid of him, and he did it. Took him to a part of the city he knew nothing about and left him. He was only 5 years old. He tried to run to catch up with his brother, but his brother kept running and got away. Then when he became a famous athlete, a boxer, he put up $10,000 just for anybody could tell him who he really was. And his aunt comes forward then. She only interested in the money. But he said at least he knew who he was, who his family was. But like I said, I wouldn't want to see that brother because I would have did something to him. Okay, but anyway, he converted to Islam. Let's talk about that. Saad Muhammad was one of a number of fighters who converted to Islam during his career. He, like Eddie Mustafa Muhammad and Dwight Muhammad Qualley, was inspired by Muhammad Ali's conversion. So now his boxing career. Saad Muhammad began boxing as a way to defend himself from youth gang members who tormented him for being an orphan. After a short stint in the amateur ranks, 20 amateur fights overall, and he won the Trenton, New Jersey Golden Gloves, he turned pro in 1973. Now, Matthew turned pro during the golden age of heavyweight boxing, and the light heavyweight scene was golden as well. Yeah, I told you, 70s, 80s, those light heavyweights was on fire, and that's when he came in. He fought a litany of light heavyweight greats, including fights with such greats as Mate Parlov, Marvin Camel, Marvin Johnson twice, John Conte twice, Murray Sutherland, Eddie Mustafa Muhammad, the White Muhammad Qari twice, the great Yaki Lopez, Uriah Grant, Marcus Bott, Lottie Mwali, Bonzel Johnson, never fought Michael Spinks. Wow. But that right there is a resume and a half right there. Just those names, and that's just part of his resume. Win, lose, or draw, Saad Muhammad was an all-action fighter who fought as though his life depended on it. 35 of his 49 wins were by knockout, and he was one of the most popular fighters in the world in the late 1970s. Because remember, in the modern era, they say the two most exciting fighters was him and Arturo Gatti, okay? He was one of the most popular fighters in the world in the late 70s. Matthew came from behind in fights so many times. His nickname was Miracle Matthew. He had a knack for snatching victory from the jaws of defeat, so they called him Miracle Matthew. That was his nickname, Miracle Matthew. Yeah, that's crazy, ain't it, Justu? His brother just left him. Again, I wouldn't want to see that brother again when we grew up, because I might have ended up behind bars, man. Anyway, it was great enough that he was elected to the Hall of Fame in his first year eligibility in 1998. After his retirement, Saad Muhammad trained for a time. He was a trainer, and then his life spiraled downhill. Like so many former athletes, Saad Muhammad fell victim to drinking and substance abuse. In July 2010, he was homeless and living in a homeless shelter in Philadelphia. Isn't that something? That's how his life started. At 5 years old, he was an orphan, and then when he grew up, after his career, he became homeless again, living in a shelter in Philly. Once again, Muhammad overcame tragedy, and by the next year, he was living independently, thanks to the help of Kevin Roberts, the editor of One Step Away, a newspaper that covers homelessness issues. And Matthew later became involved in charity work in the Philadelphia area, some of which focused on raising money for the homeless. But life still had one last mean trick to play on Matthew Saad Muhammad. The fate was not done with him. Like Ezra Charles, he had been experiencing numbness in his extremities, and he developed ALS. Now, though he fought as hard as he could, he died at a hospital in Philly on May 25th, 2014 from complications of ALS. But despite it all, Saad Muhammad never stopped fighting. Despite all that happened in his life, being abandoned by his family at 5 years old, racing after his brother after he abandoned him, finding his family after he grew up, only to find out the only reason they answered he put a reward up, right? And the only reason his family answered it because they wanted the money he put up. And then after his career, he lost everything he had to drugs and the streets, getting ALS and slowly losing the ability to walk or talk. Saad Muhammad never gave in, never. After his death, the Hall of Fame director summed up Saad Muhammad's career. Matthew Saad Muhammad was one of the most exciting boxers of all time. His drama-filled fights were thrilling, and he was a real fan favorite. That was the Hall of Fame executive director, Ed Brophy. Okay. He said, we join the boxing community in mourning his passing and offer our condolences to his family. Okay, this is what his daughter said about him. I think what my father taught people is that even though you fall down in life, just know that you can get back up. You can get back up from anything that can knock you down. That's the key, getting back up. Perhaps it was old rival Eddie Mustafa Muhammad who summed up Matthew Saad Muhammad the best. I think he fought Eddie twice. Eddie Mustafa said, he became one of my best friends. Like the day after I fought him, you never saw it without a smile on his face, even when things wasn't going his way. When Matthew Saad Muhammad died, he didn't have enough money to pay for his funeral, let alone a headstone. The Muslim community in Philadelphia buried him. And then friends like Philly boxing historian John DeSanto, founder and editor of Home Philly Boxing History, quietly raised money for a headstone. And they put up one that Matthew Saad Muhammad deserved. I should have put a picture of that in there. It says Matthew Saad Muhammad, Miracle Matthew, on his headstone with a picture of him. Okay. I missed that. Okay. Matthew Saad Muhammad epitomized Philly tough. Okay. He did. Yeah. We talked about Philly tough fighters today. Next one, we go back a ways. Tommy Loughran. Got to cover the old school too. Tommy Loughran. There's Tommy. Another tough Philadelphian. Mm-hmm. Tommy Loughran. Got a Christmas special tomorrow too. Okay. The 12 days of boxing. You know, first we're gonna look at one of the best first rounds ever, one of the best second rounds ever, one of the best third rounds ever, all the way up to 12. Okay, the 12 rounds of boxing tomorrow, and then little Christmas boxing history, and then we're gonna discuss some fights that actually 4 or 5 fights that actually happened on Christmas Day over the years throughout history of this great sport of boxing. Okay, Tommy Loughran. How great was heavyweight fighter Tommy Loughran? He was a heavyweight too. Mm-hmm. Yeah. He fought back in the day. Here we go. Tommy, we're going to get them all in too. We got like 6 of them. Philly tough. Tommy Loughran was a truly great fighter. He is in the International Boxing Hall of Fame, one of only 20 undisputed light heavyweight boxing champions in boxing history. Okay? And he sits proudly and deservedly in the Hall of Fame. Now, he was the 6th ever undisputed light heavyweight champion and one of only 20 undisputed light heavyweight champions in boxing history. So who was Tommy Loughran? He was born Thomas Patrick Loughran on November 29th, 1902. He was one of 7 children in a family of an Irish immigrant father and a native-born American Irish mother. Okay? Loughran was the son of Patrick Loughran, who had immigrated from Gobley in County Tyrone around 1895 to seek his fortune in the United States. He found work as a milkman and later married Loughran's mother, Anne Haley, the Philadelphia-born daughter of Irish immigrants who had fled Ireland during the terrible years of the potato famine. Now, the couple settled in the Irish community of South Philadelphia, and Tommy was the 3rd of their 7 children. Now, while not as poor as many boxers, Loughran's family was borderline poor, and like so many immigrant kids and poor kids, Loughran found boxing as a path to a better life. Okay? boxing as a way out, like so many boxers through the years, right? But he found it in the Marine Corps, which Lachlan joined at, get this, age 14, right? And he was not a Marine long, right? His parents went immediately to the police when he went missing. And a missing persons report was issued on him. And Lachlan was found in the Marines. And they brought his butt back home, 14 years old. But he lied about his age and everything. We're going to get to that. Now, boxing career. Lachlan graduated from high school 3 years early. He was saved later because of his near-perfect memory. Wow, he was intelligent. He appeared older than 14 when he joined the Marines, telling the recruiter he was 23. Wow, come on, recruiter. He was 14, told the man he was 23. Oh, he was like 18, right? I wonder why he said 23, but he told the recruiter he was 23, right? In the Marines, Lachlan found boxing for the first time. He would tell people in later years, they matched me with a tough Marine, and what I did to him was nobody's business. After the Marines discharged him, his parents came and got him. The disappointed Lachlan took his new boxing habit home with him from the Marines, and he began fighting as an amateur back at home in Philly. He began fighting as a pro at age 17. And for his debut fight, guess how much he earned? For his debut fight, he earned 11 cents, okay? For his boxing debut, he earned 11 cents. I guess that's a little bit for way back in the 20s. Wow, 11 cents. Now, Lachlan's first 2 years were spent as a middleweight, though today he would be a junior middleweight. 2 years into his career, Lachlan had 5 recorded fights at full middleweight. Then he began campaigning as a light heavyweight, where he would fight the next 7 years, and he won the light heavyweight title in 1927, okay? To show you how different it was a century ago in sports and how popular boxing was back then, Lachlan's nephew, Tom Dooley, describes the scene the night Lachlan came home after winning the light heavyweight title. His nephew said there were 40,000 people outside his house that night waiting for him when he won the title. He came back to Philly on a special train, and when he got back, he had to go down an alley and go in his house through the back door. Then he came out the front door to say a few words. You wouldn't believe how popular he was in Philly then, and even to this day, he was still a huge name in Philly even 30 or 40 years after he had retired. If your name was Lachlan, you were gold in Philadelphia, many years after he had even retired, okay? Lachlan's greatest feat was perhaps his 1923 defeat of the great Harry Greb, though he lost the series with Harry Greb 4-1, and the sixth fight was a draw, 4-1, 4 for Harry, 1 for Tommy, and 1 a draw. In 1928, Lachlan began fighting as a heavyweight, where, as he rarely noted, because that's where the money and fame was. Heavyweight. Yeah, back then the heavyweight champion was one of the most famous people in the United States, the heavyweight champion, especially if you were American, where most of them was back in them days. Now, Lachlan did keep his light heavyweight title until 1929, where his last defense was a successful one against the great toy bulldog, Mickey Walker. Lachlan never lost his title in the ring. He relinquished it to move up to the heavyweight. At heavyweight, he defeated former undisputed heavyweight champion Jack Sharkey and Max Baer. And on March 1st, 1934, he went 15 rounds with undisputed heavyweight champion Primo Carnera, losing a close decision in his bid to become a two-weight world champion. He never won it at heavyweight. Lachlan would bitterly complain for the rest of his life that he was robbed of the title against Carnera, because they said Carnera was a mafia-controlled fighter, so he could have something to that. He told Peter Heller, this writer, in 1972, way long after he retired, I beat Carnera, and there was no question about it. And like I said, Carnera is rumored, never proven, was rumored he was a mafia-controlled fighter, so Lachlan could very well have beaten him, but the mafia money was on Carnera. So after the Canara fight, 3 years later in 1937, with an official record of 90 wins, 25 losses, 10 draws, Lockman retired. And a lot of losses were common back then because you were constantly fighting the best against the best on a regular basis back then. So you suffered a lot of losses. Wasn't nobody worried about no, oh, this man had 25 losses, still in the Hall of Fame, okay? They didn't measure wins and losses. They measured who you fought, how you performed against them. Now, Lockman said he knew it was time to retire from 1934 on after the Canara fight, saying, when 1 minute between rounds isn't enough time to recuperate, then you know it's time to get out, okay? Lockman was remembered as a marvelous boxer, a ring technician who depended on speed, timing, technical mastery, and a sterling defense to compensate for a lack of power. Yeah, he didn't have much power. He once said, they had to hit me to hurt me, so I make sure they can't hit me, right? He was so good that future world heavyweight champion James J. Braddock, after losing a 15-round decision to Tommy, said, I figured I had to try to fight Tommy, not box him, because as far as boxing goes, I would have been outclassed. And he beat me in 15 rounds easy with his boxing ability. He was a guy you could never hit with a good solid punch, right? And he worked fanatically on his ring craft, Tommy did. He also had a world-class chin, only suffering 3 stoppages in 125 official fights, and never being knocked out in a 10 count, on the canvas knockout. And 125 is official. That means he probably had more. Never knocked out on the 10 count, and the 3 stoppages over by TKO. He was called the Phantom of Philly. And he still holds the record for greatest weight discrepancy in an undisputed title match in the Canara fight. He came in at 186. Primo was 270. Okay, what's that, 96 pounds? 270. Let me see, I've got the calculator right here. Wow, that's the biggest weight discrepancy in a title fight in history. Primo was 270. Tommy was 186. Wow. The 45, no. 270 minus 186. That ain't no 145. 84. That's 86. I can count. 84. I was only 2 off. But 84 is the biggest discrepancy in history. Now, Lockman was a top fighter at least 2 years before formal rankings began. In 1924, that's when the rankings began. He was ranked an amazing 10 times annually over a 12-year period. Okay? And these are the guys he fought. And these are the big names back around that time. Harry Greb. Y'all heard me say these names. Harry Greb, Gene Tunney, Young Stribling, Mike McTeague, Ted Moore, Roland Todd, Jack Delaney, Jack Gross, Georges Carpenter, Jimmy Slattery, Leo Lonsky, Pete Latzo, the Toy Bulldog, Mickey Walker, King Levinsky, James J. Braddock, Jack Sharkey, Max Baer, Paolino Escudon, Primo Carnera, Steve Harmus, Ed Stone, Arturo Godoy, Walter Nussel, and Tommy Farr. Wow. So life after boxing, running down on Tommy. Life after boxing for Tommy. After he retired, he moved to New York City and amazingly became a very successful broker, a commodities trader for the next 25 years. Because remember, he was very intelligent. Remember, he finished high school 3 years early. Okay, only went to high school for like 1 year, right? He also refereed 6 fights. And after his retirement from Wall Street as a broker, he returned to Pennsylvania, where he had grown up, and he became a very sought-after speaker, right? He was eloquent and a great defender of the sweet science. Lockman also provided color commentary for at least 1 fight. Amazingly, in 1942, at 40 years old, Lockwood enlisted in the Marines again, this time successfully, right? They didn't come get him this time, because last time he was 14, remember? And he served during World War II. Now, much to his disappointment, the Marines used him as a physical fitness trainer, despite his repeated pleas to be allowed into combat, but I guess they said he was too old. In 1982, Lockwood died in his native Altoona at 79 years old. Tommy Lockwood was a marvelous fighter, a truly elite fighter who well deserves to be in the Hall of Fame, and he was Philly tough. Tommy Lockwood, another Philly tough fighter. All right, we got Bad Benny Briscoe now. Bad Benny Briscoe, Philly tough today. Next is Bad Benny Briscoe. Okay, there's Bad Benny. He looks like he bad. Look at him. He got his game face on in that picture. Bad Benny got the game face on. Yeah. Okay, Bad Benny Briscoe. I think he was a middleweight. He fought Hagler. I think he beat Hagler. Hagler went up there and lost a series of fights in Philly, but he kept going back. Benny never won a title, so Hagler was a non-title fight. Am I seeing right? Fender Bender, wow. What's up, Fender Bender? I haven't seen Fender Bender in a while. Happy holidays. I thought I was seeing things. Fender Bender in the building. Salute. Good to see you, Fender Bender. All right. Fender Bender says, hey, Cass, just stopping by to say hello. Been a long time since I've been in the community. Just busy with life. Wanted to say Merry Christmas to you, Jay, Jess, Squeeze, and a spit bucket. Oh, senior, right? Fender Bender, yeah. You have a blessed one too, Fender Bender. Good to see you. Fender Bender. Salute. Oh yeah, you like that one, Al Booger? Bad Benny Briscoe. Yeah, that's what they call him, Bad Benny. So I guess he had to, couldn't come up there smiling if your nickname is Bad, right? But Bad Benny Briscoe, Philadelphia's uncrowned middleweight king. He never won a title. Nope. In all of boxing history, the middleweight division has always been remarkably prosperous with talent. Legends such as Harry Greb, the toy bulldog Mickey Walker. I like saying that, the toy bulldog Mickey Walker. Kind of looked like a bulldog too in the face. And Tiger Flowers have blessed the middleweight division with their presence in the past. And that's merely discussing the 20s alone. Decade after decade, the 160 has maintained a strong standing in the sport of boxing. A quick glance over each era will show you that. The 40s, for example, were simply electric. Phenomenal fighters like Sugar Ray Robinson, Archie Moore, and Marcel Cerdan were all but a few of the big names at the time. Now the 50s, I call the 50s the greatest middleweight, the greatest division of all for middleweights. The 50s had fighters such as Gene Foreman, Palmer Basilio, Joey Giardello, Dick Tiger, okay? And Sugar Ray and Jake LaMotta, Marcel Cerdan fought in the 50s too. Randy Turpin beat Sugar Ray. And with greats like Emil Griffith, Nino Benvenuti, Dick Tiger, ruling the 60s. Yeah, Dick Tiger fought in the 50s and 60s. It was another decade just teeming with brilliance. 160. But how about the 70s? Look at the fighters who composed the middleweight scene at the time, and you'll see that this was also an exceptionally gifted period, inhabited by outstanding boxers such as King Carlos Monzon and Marvelous Marvin Hagler. It was also undoubtedly the golden era for Philadelphia middleweights. Bobby Boogaloo Watts, Eugene Cyclone Hart, Stanley Kitten Hayward, Willie the Worm Monroe, and perhaps the most intimidating of the lot, Bad Benny Briscoe made up the colorful gang of Philly Toughs at the time. Yeah, Hagler went up there and took a few L's in the 70s too from a few of them guys, yeah. I think Bad Benny, Willie the Worm, yeah. But Hagler kept going back. Kept going back until he started winning. To be feared in an era that skillful was quite a statement. Yet Bad Benny was just that. Big, bad, and bald-headed. Like Reuben Hurricane Carter before him, or Hagler after. Briscoe had a fearsome look about him and all the tools to back that look up. He was a vicious force in the trenches. His punching as a whole was first class, yet there is no denying that his work to the body was his best. When he brought that right hand down to the ribs, you could see even the most hardened of fighters cringe in pain upon impact. His patented Philly left hook was short, sharp, and to the point, and his unorthodox neck bender left jab was full of snap, purely a weapon, not a measuring stick. Okay, yeah, Bad Benny's jab wasn't no measuring stick, it was a weapon, okay? However, it was his right cross to the jaw that was his Sunday punch, precise, swift, and packed with power. Bad Benny would later place at number 34 on the Ring Magazine's list of the top 100 greatest punchers of all time. That's not bad, number 34. His come-forward style made it seem as though he was easy to hit cleanly, which wasn't the case at all, okay? Wasn't the case at all. He stood in a half crouch, kept his hands high, bobbed and weaved past punches, tucked his chin in close to his chest, and smothered his opponents, not allowing them to get their shots off properly, making himself an awkward target. When Benny was at the top of his game, he was tremendous. Bad Benny. Benny started his pro career in 1962, racking up 15 straight victories out of the gate, with 10 of them knockouts, before he lost the decision to Percy Manning nearly 3 years after his career, 3 years into his career. Now, Benny would lose to various fighters through 65 to 67, like fellow Philly fighter Stanley Kitten Hayward. Yeah, we got Stanley on this list too. Stanley was a tough and awkward brawler, most notably known for a spectacular come-from-behind knockout of Curtis Coates in 1964. 2 years after that, in one of Benny's finest wins, he would retire defensive marble George Benton in the 10th round of their fight. Yeah, George became a legendary trainer too. Remember, you heard of George Benton, the trainer? Yeah. He fought his last fight was against Bad Benny. It was a win for Benny. After that, Benny dropped the decision to former middleweight champion Luis Rodriguez before he stepped up and faced King Carlos Monzon in 1967. They had two battles. Now, King Carlos was virtually unheard of at the time, and many felt that Benny would walk all over the sharp boxer from Argentina. When the pair finally got together in Buenos Aires, they fought for 10 fiercely contested rounds. Briscoe, always the aggressor, brought the fight to King Carlos, who in turn worked efficiently off the back foot. It was a give and take affair through and through, with both men displaying not only their boxing prowess, but their gallantry, heart, and determination. Though the fight ended in a draw, it enhanced Monzon's world rankings to a much greater extent than Benny's. Yeah, they thought Benny was going to walk all over King Carlos, but that's what really put King Carlos on the map, a draw against Bad Benny. And King Carlos didn't show many fighters respect after fights and stuff, but Bad Benny was one of the only ones that he showed respect and liked, was Bad Benny Briscoe, yeah. Now, Briscoe would run into a few more rough patches throughout the late 60s, losing his return fight with Rodriguez and falling short in his fight with future light heavyweight champion Vincent Rondon, who he would knock out cleanly a year later in 1969. By 1970, Benny had managed to regain his footing and knocked out every one of his next 11 opponents, okay? Though not without facing a bit of difficulty in the process in 1971, okay? He was sent to the canvas for the first time in his career when facing Carlos Marks before storming back for the knockout win in the 5th round. Went down for the first time in his career. However, his next test against contender Rafael Gutierrez would prove to be an even more punishing contest. In the opening round alone, Gutierrez, to the surprise of many, managed to deck Benny twice. Unfortunately for Rafael, Benny knew the laws of survival all too well and rebounded in the second with his own attack, ending matters decisively. The very same round, 2nd round, Benny terrorized the crafty Al Quinney Nix, stopping his opponent in the 2nd round again, after knocking him down for a 4th time. Then he demolished Jorge Rosales in 1 round. Benny's winning streak would end after losing a close decision to Luis Vinales in 1972, who was stopped in 7 rounds in their rematch later that same year. After this win, Benny would meet King Carlos Monzon again, who was now the middleweight champion, this time for the WBA and WBC titles. King Carlos was undisputed because he was undisputed from 1970 to 1977, remember? Then there was a 3-year gap, and then Hagler was undisputed from 1980 to 1987. 14 of 17 years, those two held undisputed in the middleweight division. This time, King Carlos proved he had learned a substantial amount since the initial fight and boxed beautifully for 15 rounds. Yeah, he didn't go in there and slug it up with Benny this time. King Carlos boxed him. King Carlos worked in circles, pumping out that snake-like jab, razor-sharp right cross, and sweeping left hook in rapid succession, while Benny, as dogged as ever, stalked his target. Briscoe was, as always, relaxed yet lively and bursting with rhythm as he bobbed, weaved, dipped, and dived his way forward. He worked Carlos' ribs stubbornly. However, his opponent simply wouldn't wilt under fire. Monzon got a good taste of Bad Benny's right cross in the 9th, slumping onto the ropes upon delivery. But the clever champion managed to tie his opponent up before he could follow up the attack and survive the rest of the round. By the end of the 15th round, the decision was clear in favor of Escopeta. Yeah, King Carlos learned his lesson. He went in there and slugged it out in their first fight. And he got a lot of credit because he got a draw. And he, like I said, they expected Bad Benny to walk all over him. But the second fight, King Carlos said, hell no, I'm not going to war with this guy again. And he boxed. King Carlos couldn't do either. Go to war and slug it out or box. That's why he was undisputed for 7 straight years. Won his last 13, he didn't lose his last 13 years of the fight, okay? I don't know how many fights it was. Now, Bad Benny, eager to receive another shot at a title, stopped each of his next 3 opponents until catching up with the dangerous Colombian slugger, Rodrigo Valdez. In their first fight, the two battled it out for 12 close rounds, okay, with Rodrigo, only to have Valdez pull out a close decision. Following this loss, Benny would rack up another 3 straight knockout victories, resulting in a rematch with Rodrigo for the vacant WBC middleweight title in 1974. The fight was a vicious affair, with plenty of fierce exchanges and punching power on display by both men. Valdez made certain to establish his authority early on, nearly decking Benny with a piercing right hand in the opening round. As the fight progressed, Rodrigo seemed to be having the better of it, as Benny was simply getting outgunned by a younger, more powerful opponent. The 7th round saw Benny come out well, launching a successful body attack and even staggering Rodrigo with his own right hand. As Benny began to throw his infamous right cross once more, Rodrigo saw the opening he'd been looking for and landed a short right hand flush across Benny's face. Benny's head sagged forward and his knees buckled, and the following left hook didn't do much to help him regain his composure as the seasoned veteran went crashing to the canvas. 2nd time in his career, okay? Benny arose at 8, but the referee had decided he'd seen enough and stopped the fight. It was the only time in his entire career that the Philly tough fighter had ever been knocked out. He had been down before, but he had never Never been knocked out before. Okay, Benny. We'll have to move this along. Yeah, that was the only time he ever got stopped in his career. Was by Rodrigo, the great Rodrigo Valdez. Okay. Rodrigo had to win over King Carlos. I think that might have been the last time King Carlos lost. Okay, here we go. So, Bad Benny was not only one of the fiercest middleweights of the 70s, but also one of the finest. He was avoided like the plague by many of the top contenders throughout his career. Very few, if any, were eager to face him. And who could blame them? No one walked out of a fight with a prime Benny Briscoe unmarked or untested, even the great King Carlos Monzon. From savvy defensive specialists and top-class boxers to nasty sluggers and one-punch knockout artists, Benny met them all. Fearless, vicious, and just plain bad. Benny Briscoe was Philadelphia's uncrowned middleweight king and Philly tough. Bad Benny, okay? Yeah. Bad Benny was a bad man. He was, if any fighter was ducked more to him in the 70s, it was Hagler. Between them two. Okay, Willie Monroe. Willie the Worm Monroe is next. Philly tough today. There's Willie the Worm, right there. Willie the Worm Monroe. Don't forget tomorrow, the 12 rounds of boxing. Oh, come on, Willie. The 12 rounds of boxing tomorrow. There we go. Willie Monroe. Stanley Haywood. If I wanted Stanley, wouldn't have been able to find him. Okay, remembering Willie the Worm Monroe. All right. We got Stanley the Kitten Haywood, and last but certainly not least is Jersey Joe Walcott. And then our Christmas list for Santa Claus. What he want us to bring us for the fights we want next year, man. We're getting one of them. Secure and Tia Fillmore is a pretty good one. Born in Rochester, New York, Willie the Worm Monroe went pro in November of 1969, scoring a knockout over a guy named Vince Niratka, who he fought at yet another legendary venue, this one being the Blue Horizon in Philadelphia. Yeah, Blue Horizon, legendary venue up there in Philly. Monroe, tall for the weight, would remain unbeaten until he lost back-to-back decisions away from home in Paris and in New Orleans in 1972. Part of the tough and hard middleweight rivalry that so captured the imagination of Philly fans throughout the 1970s, Monroe would fight Eugene Cyclone Hart, Bobby Boogaloo Watts, and Marvelous Marvin Hagler. Monroe beat Hart, lost to Watts, and then decisioned Hagler. He was one of those ones Hagler wanted to Philly and lost to, but Hagler kept going back, and he started winning. Monroe actually fought Hagler 3 times, being stopped in the second fight in the 12th round, and also stopped in his third fight in the second round. During his 22-year pro career, Willie also defeated Billy Dynamite Douglas, that was the father of future heavyweight champion, brief heavyweight champion, James Buster Douglas, okay? And never a big puncher, Monroe was instead a clever boxer, always well-conditioned and always willing to fight the best. Stopped just 4 times, twice by Hagler, once by David Love, and once right at the end of his career by Willie Edwards. Monroe walked away with a record of 39 wins, 10 losses, 1 draw, 26 knockouts. Now, fans may recall the segment of the superb 2007 documentary, Billy in Manila, in which Marvis Frazier, speaking on the brutal third fight between his father, Joe Frazier, and Muhammad Ali, gave details of how it was Monroe who was frantically trying to signal to him how Ali had asked Angelo Dundee to cut him off at the conclusion of that Saturday 14th round. Yeah, Now, Monroe and Ali said that didn't happen, but Marvin Frazier said he saw that happen. Willie Monroe was signaling to him to signal his father that corner not to go to Thailand. Okay? Willie had supposedly heard and exhausted Ali tell his trainer and cornerman, Angelo Dundee, that he was all in. How boxing history might have been different if Monroe had managed to speak with Frazier's trainer, Eddie Futch, during those frantic few seconds. As it is, Willie Monroe has its own place in boxing history. Okay, that was a little short one. Willie the Worm. Next is Stanley the Kitten Haywood. Stanley the Kitten Haywood. I just saw Stanley. There's Stanley right there. No, that ain't. That's Jersey Joe Walcott. That's Bad Benny. Oh, that's Stanley there. I don't have Willie the Worm. That was Stanley right there. This is Stanley right here. I miss Willie the Worm. Okay. Stanley the Kitten Haywood is next. Another short one. Okay, let's see. Okay, let's talk about Stanley. Well, I got 20 likes. Okay. I got 3 I didn't get myself yet. Okay. Stanley the Kitten Haywood. There we go. Yeah, that's Stanley up there. Why didn't they say the cat? Kitten. A boxer named Kitten. That was Stanley the Cat Haywood. But Stanley the Kitten. I'm sure it's a story behind that. Okay, Stanley the Kitten Haywood. One of the toughest Philly tough fighters of all, Stanley the Kitten. We got to get our list there. Okay, Jersey Joe is next. He's one of the toughest fighters to ever come out of Philly. Stanley the Kitten Haywood was just one of the many tough welterweights and middleweights that came out of Philadelphia in the 1960s and 70s. He battled the best his hometown had to offer and several other world contenders too. Haywood began his pro career in 1959. He won 16 of his first 18 fights. In 1963, he dropped the 10-rounder to welterweight contender Jose Stable. Later in the year, he stopped Percy Manning. In 1964 and 1965, Haywood made great strides up the ladder. First, he halted future welterweight champion Curtis Coates in 4 brutal rounds. Then in 1965, he beat Vince Schomer, Tito Marshall, and Bad Benny Briscoe. Okay? In 1966, Haywood suffered a setback when he lost in 7 rounds to the talented Gypsy Joe Harris. He came right back in 67, beating Fate Davis, Pete Toro, and battling to a draw with John Jocelyn. Then in 68, he had a draw with the rugged Joe Shaw. Then he possibly later that same year, October 68, he won possibly the biggest fight of his career. He scored an upset 10-round decision over former world champion, the legendary Emil Griffith. And the win over Griffith put Haywood in line for a title shot. On March 17, 1969, he met Freddie Little for the vacant WBA and WBC versions of the junior middleweight title. Those were the 2 major versions. They had minors back then, but that was undisputed, those 2. Okay, didn't have no IBF or WBO, but there were other minor titles. The fight took place in Las Vegas, and Little outscored the Kitten over 15 rounds. Yeah, that was his first title shot. He lost it. And the loss to Little started Haywood's career on a downward spiral. Over his next 14 fights, he would go 5 wins, 8 losses, 1 draw. And he finished 1969 losing a decision in a rematch with Emil Griffith. And then he as his career was winding down, the Kitten was KO'd in 7 by Willie the Worm Monroe in 1974. Then in 75, he lost the rematch to Benny Briscoe. Yeah, he beat Benny the first time, lost the rematch. In his final fight in 1977, he was knocked out in 4 rounds by Larry Davis. He amassed 48 fights in his respectable pro career, finishing with 32 wins, 12 losses, 4 draws, okay, while meeting some of the best boxers of his era between the 147 and 160-pound weight class. And he proved to be Philly tough. Stanley the Kitten Haywood. And finally, Jersey Joe Walcott is our final Philly tough warrior for today. Jersey Joe Walcott. Okay. I can't find the last. I think that's it right there. Nope. It's okay. There it is, Jersey Joe Walcott. Another Philly tough fight. Like I said, a lot of fighters from southern New Jersey consider themselves Philly fighters. Okay, yeah, here we go. Jersey Joe Walcott. How good of a boxer was Jersey Joe Walcott anyway? Glad y'all asked. Let's talk about it. Now, Jersey Joe Walcott was not just a good boxer. He was a great boxer who was regarded as one of the very best heavyweights during the 1940s and 1950s. And many believe to this day that he defeated the great Joe Louis in a display of all-time ring wizardry. Okay? We're going to explain that. The fight between him and Joe Louis. He gave it to Joe. And after the fight, after they gave the decision to Joe Louis went over and apologized to Jersey Joe. Jersey Joe Walker, that's Joe on the mat there. Jersey Joe floored Joe Louis twice in their first fight and should have won according to the referee and a substantial majority of their ringside journalists. And he was clearly the better boxer at age 38 in his first fight against a much younger Rocky Marciano until he ate a devastating haymaker in the 13th round and couldn't get up. Now, details follow, including analysis of the infamous decision in the first Louis fight. Okay? Yes, that's another shot at Jersey Joe. Jersey Joe Walcott finished his career with 70 fights on the dot. He won 49, lost 20, had 1 draw. He's the number 14 heavyweight of all time, according to historian Bill Kaplan. He's the number 20 boxer of all time per BoxRec. Walcott had signature wins over great boxers like Ezzard Charles twice, Joey Maxim twice, Elmer Ray twice, Harold Johnson, and Jimmy Bivens. It is him and Ezzard Charles right there. Mm-hmm. Ezzard Charles sizes up. That's Ezzard on the left. Yeah. They sizing each other up. They would eventually meet for the heavyweight championship after Joe Louis retired, with Jersey Joe coming out on top. Now, Jersey Joe Walcott was born Arnold Raymond Cream in Pennsauken Township, New Jersey in 1914. He took his ring name from his hero, the legendary welterweight Barbados Joe Walcott, who was nicknamed the Barbados Demon. Yeah, so some New Jersey fighters consider themselves Philly. And he is one of the Philly tough fighters. But he took his nickname from Barbados Joe Walcott, who was called the Barbados Demon. Jersey Joe was 6 feet tall and had a 74-inch reach, which is about average for a heavyweight, okay, for the modern days, but was probably a bit above average for his era. He usually fought in the 190, 195 pound range. Yeah, he fought in a small era. Historian James Foley called Jersey Joe Walcott a defensive warlock with profound power in his right hand. Foley also called Walcott a genuine all-time great and one of boxing's most underrated talents. Walcott was renowned for his superb footwork and head movement. He was also a master at blocking punches with his arms and shoulders. With his shoulder rolls and other defensive wizardry, Walcott might be considered a bigger Floyd Mayweather Jr., albeit with more knockout power. One word that comes to mind for Walcott is slick. And indeed, Foley called Walcott one of the slickest fighters ever to grace the heavyweight division. On December 5th, 1947, Jersey Joe Walcott fought the great Joe Louis for the world heavyweight title. Walcott was a 10-1 underdog coming in. Why was this? Joe Louis was more than a boxer. He was a legend. As A.J. Liebling explained, Joe Louis was an icon before World War II, after defeating the German Maximilian in 1938. But his service to his country and his active advocacy for the United States during the war made him a legend, right? At the time of the first fight with Jersey Joe, the legendary Joe Louis was 56 wins, 1 loss, with 48 knockouts. That long loss was to Maximilian. Had been spectacularly avenged. Louis was the greatest heavyweight champion prior to Muhammad Ali, and thus the greatest heavyweight champion the world had ever seen as of 1947. And some boxing experts still rank Louis first today. In a consensus poll, the 3 consensus greatest fighters of all time were Sugar Ray Robinson, Ali, and Louis in that order. And it was pretty close between second and third. All the other boxers were well back and not in contention for the top 3. Okay? Well back. And Walcott coming into the Joe Louis fight was 44 wins, 11 losses, 2 draws, including losses to Johnny Allen, George Brothers, Roy Laser, and Abe Simon. However, appearances can be deceiving because in his previous 17 fights before the Joe Louis fight, Walcott was 15-2, only losses to all-time greats Elmer Ray and Joey Maxim. And Walcott came back to avenge both those losses, beating Maxim twice. So why did Walcott lose so many fights? Sometimes the journeyman. An educated guess is that with a large family to support, and most of his purses not being excessively large, Walcott was not able to focus solely on boxing. Thus, it took him longer to hone his craft than more focused boxers with such important demands on his time. Walcott was just 15 when his father died. He quit school and worked in a Campbell soup factory in nearby Camden to support his mother and 11 younger siblings, okay? Later, as a married man, he had 6 children of his own and a wife to support. Walcott worked full-time until age 38. He was always a family man and a provider first, a boxer second. He became the world heavyweight champion in his spare time, okay? And he had to learn on the job because he didn't fight as an amateur boxer. He turned pro at age 16. No amateur experience. And then fighting older men when he was still growing during the early stages of your career at 16 with no amateur career. And he started out as a middleweight, okay? He grew into heavyweight by age 19. So it's not at all surprising that Jersey Joe lost some of his early fights to older, more experienced men. He was physically immature and still growing. And he was inexperienced compared to many boxers with Guardian Pro records. At one point in his early 20s, Walcott's record was just 16 wins, 7 losses. But he was learning on the job, remember? Needing money, Walcott often took fights on short notice, leaving him little or no time to train, okay? Most of those 11 losses had to do with the 11 siblings he helped support, and him wanting to put some extra bread on the table with bread earned from boxing, taking fights on short notice and not having a lot of time to train, right? And there's another money matter. It takes money to set up training camps and hire qualified trainers and sparring partners. Lacking that sort of money, Walcott was operating at a distinct disadvantage to more established fighters. Things got so bad financially for Jersey Joe and his family that by the winter of 1944, they were living in a shack in Camden, New Jersey, and facing a freezing New Jersey winter without enough coal to keep them warm. Jersey Joe decided to get a second job and give up boxing, but a local boxing promoter, Vince Marsilio, bought the Walcotts enough coal to make it through the winter, and Jersey Joe was able to continue boxing. At that time, his record was 26 wins, 10 losses, 1 draw. Okay? Now, another disadvantage for Walcott is that his defensive wizardry was not always appreciated. Joe Louis would accuse him of running. Judges may not have always recognized when Jersey Joe was making his opponents miss or deflecting their punches with his shoulder and arms. It's harder to win fights with defensive excellence than with crowd-pleasing offense, right? Should Walcott's record have been better than it was? Historian John McLaughlin observed, in his younger prime years, Walcott was the victim of numerous close or questionable decisions, as judges tended to favor more action-oriented fighters, right? That still goes on now. As a result of these disadvantages, Walcott was unranked for the first team's 15 years of his boxing career. He entered the rankings for the first time at age 31 in 1945 and remained in the top 10 for the next 8 years. He was a late bloomer as a boxer. No other boxer has entered the top 10 so late in life and remained there so long while ranking so high. Okay, most people come in at age 31 is out of it within the next 2 or 3 years, but not Jersey Joe. And coming into the fight, the official weight at the weigh-in was Jersey Joe was 194 and a half. Joe Louis was 194 and a half, and Jersey Joe was 211. And weigh-ins were on the same day then, so it didn't have all these nutritionists and stuff. So they pretty much fought at the fight that they weighed in at, okay? And they both were 33 years of age, okay? And Joe Louis had all the advantages, making him the overwhelming favorite, or so it seemed. But Jersey Joe had a number of advantages too. Professional odds makers may not have recognized before the fight, okay? Jersey Joe was a defensive wizard, a master of feigning and slipping punches, a great counterpuncher with power in both hands, the possessor of a great jab, and he was in superb shape for his age and able to go the distance, okay? So the odds makers didn't take all that into count when they were doing the odds. And the fight did not go as people thought it would. By the time he fought Joe Louis, the slick, powerful, sneaky Walcott may have been the best heavyweight on the planet. He controlled much of the fight with his defensive wizardry, craftiness, and counterpunching power. But despite knocking Louis down in rounds 1 and 4, Walcott lost a disputed 15-round split decision. When the decision was announced, the astonished crowd roared its disapproval. Most ringside observers and boxing writers felt Walcott had won the fight. A ringside poll of 32 boxing writers had 21 scoring the fight for Walcott, 10 scoring it for Louis, and 1 calling it a draw. The referee, the legendary Ruby Goldstein, had Walcott winning on his scorecard, 7 rounds, 6-6, to a draw. Okay? After the fight, after the final bell, Joe Louis retreated toward the dressing room before the decision was announced. He was apparently convinced he'd lost. That's how shook the champion was. Louis was persuaded to return to the ring by his corner, referee Ruby Goldstein. After being announced the winner, Lewis didn't raise his arms in triumph, but walked over to his former sparring partner, Joe Walcott's corner, grabbed him by both hands and said, "I'm sorry, Joe." Walcott took that to mean Lewis was admitting that he had lost the fight, okay? So now let's look at this wish list I got here for Christmas. But Jersey Joe Walcott, Philly tough. Okay, the wish list for Christmas now. Well, Santa Claus coming tonight, and this is what I wanted to put under the tree for me. Okay. Now, one of these fights to be good, but I want most of them. Oh, come on, man, don't do this. Okay, here we go. Yeah. All right. This is boxing. Us boxing fans have been good this year. Here's our Christmas list for you, Santa Claus. Okay. These are the dream matchups we hope Santa delivers to boxing fans for 2026. Okay? This is what we want. Now we're getting one of them, Shakur and Teofimo. Shakur and Tank was on my list, but I'll take Shakur and Teofimo in place of it. Now that the Jake Paul versus Anthony Joshua fight is behind us, boxing fans have just one more major card left on the calendar for 2025, with Japanese pound-for-pound superstar Naoya Inoue taking on Alan Picasso in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. Saturday, right? This Saturday. Watching a super bantamweight star defend this belt isn't a bad way to end the year if you're a boxing fan like us. Now, the boxing scene to have regained its footing in 2023, 2024 was an especially disappointing year for the sport, as the momentum from the best fighting the best from 23 seemed to dissipate as the calendar year went on throughout 2024. Now, 2025 has been uneven so far, okay? Been a little uneven. Could have been better, could have been worse, but uneven. Now, Bud Crawford and Canelo Alvarez saved the year with their September mega fight, right? It was the first time since 2023 that the eyes of the entire world were on boxing, and they were for that fight. The boxing fans didn't get everything they wanted out of 2025. We never do. But there were enough big fights, including the one mega fight, Canelo and Bud, to make most fight fans happy with the year, okay? Now, Christmas is the time to receive gifts. And as Mariah Carey says, I don't want a lot for Christmas, but if there's some fights Santa Claus could deliver to us in 2026, here's what I wish they would be. Now, these four kings we got there, they must start fighting each other. Now, Santa has already delivered part of this gift already, right? Like I was just talking about. Earlier this month, Shakur Stevenson and Teofimo Lopez announced that they signed a deal to meet next month at the Ring 6 event on January 31st in New York at Madison Square Garden. So far as the four kings, we got Tank, Devin, Teofimo, and Shakur. We got two of them getting in there next year. So thank you, Santa. That's one gift under the tree, right? Teo, Shakur, Tank, and Devin have been circling each other for what seems like forever. At one time, three of those fighters were all signed to the Godfather at the same time. And it was in the same weight class, but somehow never faced each other. Remember? Shakur, Devin, and Teo at one time were all signed to the Godfather. They were all at lightweight, but they never fought. Tank was the only one who wasn't over there with Godfather. But now that Shakur is a free agent and Teo is trying to get out of his top rank contract, they finally fight. It's crazy how boxing works sometimes, isn't it? When they were both over there under Godfather at lightweight, They didn't fight. But now Shakur is a free agent, not with the Godfather, and he wasn't even in the same division, and they signed the fight. Crazy how boxing works out sometimes, but hey, it worked out. Meanwhile, we don't think there's much chance of the other side of that bracket, Devin and Tank, getting it on in 2026 or 2027 or 2028, right? Now, while Devin will definitely look to be busy, Tank's future is as uncertain as it has been in years, right? Now, Shakur and Devin fought twice this year. T.O. and Tank only fought once. But while T.O. has an early date in 2026, Tank doesn't have a date or an opponent yet. T.O. and Shakur both got dates for January. So we don't expect Devin and Tank to fight in 2026 or 2027 or 2028, or 2029 or 2030, right? But if Santa's looking out for fight fans, they will start gravitating towards each other so boxing fans get the mega fights we deserve. Now, the super lightweight division needs to start consolidating too. Santa, you can bring us that. Start consolidating the super lightweight division, 140, right? Boxing purists will tell you there's only one prestige division, and that is the heavyweight division. However, as that division has fallen on hard times in recent decades, the prestige division title has migrated south in recent years. Yeah, has gone south from heavyweight. During Floyd Mayweather's iconic reign, the welterweight division was undoubtedly the division of note. The likes of Bud Crawford and Earl Spence helped keep the 147-pound weight class the best for a while after Floyd. But over the last few years, the lightweight division has featured the most talent, okay? Right now, it feels like junior welterweight or 154 could be at the top right now, okay? Lamont Roach and Pitbull Cruz also recently campaigned at 140. All that talent in one division, it'd be a shame if those fighters didn't. Some of them didn't get it on in 2026. Okay, another wish for Santa Claus. Have under my tree by tomorrow morning. Eddie Hearn, figure out what the hell you're gonna do with Boots. Okay? Eddie Hearn, figure out what you're gonna do with Boots. If boxing skills equaled attention, Jerron Boots Ennis would be a household name if it was just on skills alone. Everybody would know Boots, but it don't just go by skills. You gotta show those skills to the people in the ring for them to know you, right? Now, while Boots has been busy since he signed his deal with Eddie Hearn in 2024, he fought 4 times in that time span, so that's pretty good. Since he signed with Eddie last year, he's fought 4 times. But against who? But Hearn and Matchroom have been unable to land Boots the fight that would make him a star. Boots moved up to super welterweight for his last fight, demolishing the previously unbeaten Lima in the first round. That's part of the issue. Boots may be too good for his own good. Hope you don't end up like Boo Boo did. Boo Boo had that problem. Remember when he was at 54, 160? Nobody would fight him, and then then he got old, and Boots. I hope Boots don't end up like that. But he's thought to be too good for his own good, right? It seems there are a lot of fighters actively avoiding Boots, even as he faces accusations of ducking. Isn't that crazy? All these fighters avoid him, but they're calling him the duck. But that all could end in 2026, hopefully. Boots and fellow 154-pounder Virgil Ortiz Jr. have reportedly verbally agreed to a fight in 2026. And Virgil Ortiz has a strong fan base himself and is well respected among boxing fans. Yes, he is. This is precisely the type of fight to catapult Boots into the next stratosphere if he can win it. Now, this fight right here, if Santa Claus can put this one under my tree tonight, I ain't even worrying about no other fights until 2027. If we can get Boots and Virgil, I don't care what else happen in 2026. Okay, but that's the list. That's the wish list for 2026. We're getting one of the four kings, but we need all of them to mix it up. We need them guys at 140 to start mixing it up too. And if we can get Boots and Virgil, I don't care what the rest of them do. I'm happy. That's one fight right there. Will make my 2026, okay? All right, so that's going to be it. Appreciate everybody. I hope everybody enjoyed the show today. We're going to have a special Christmas special tomorrow, the 12 days of Christmas. The 12 days of boxing. The 12 days of boxing tomorrow, okay? You got Just Do Boxing coming up next. Okay. Fender Bender, Just Do Boxing, Mike Rem, Technique, The Drunk Irishman, Jaw, Kensaw Love 1, Mike Mazik, Al Booger, Mike Rem, Al Booger, Miss Cass. I had lost my place. Yeah, I got everybody. I got a couple of people twice. Okay, I appreciate everybody for stopping through today, though. But yeah, man, if we can get Boots and Virgil, I don't care about any other fight next year. I'm happy just to see that one fight, okay? That's the biggest fight in boxing, I think. But tomorrow, the 12 days of boxing, we're going to talk about one of the best first round, second round, third round, all the way up to 12. And then we're going to talk about some boxing history surrounding Christmas, and then some fights that actually happened on Christmas Day. Okay? All that tomorrow. We got Just Do Boxing coming up next at 4 p.m. I'll be back tomorrow at 2. If it's Monday through Friday, 2 p.m., it's The Boxstorian bringing you all that boxing history. Happy Christmas Eve. Happy Christmas Eve, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. Very happy, Merry. Everybody have a great afternoon. Cass Sports, The Boxstorian.